Welcome back to Snetterton, the opening rounds of the 2012 Dunlop Radical UK Cup, and we have got some great racing all the way through the field, not least here the 88 car of Terence Woodward looking to recover up through the pack following an early. He's on the tail of Andy Cummings, a pair of them chasing down this man, Matt Bell, who leads the SR3 class. Zach Chapman leading the race overall still. Andy Cummings, number 6, having upgraded the SR8 for the 2012 season, making a very solid start to his campaign. As they streak on towards riches now, Will Cummings come pressure and Terence Woodward this time. The pair of them closing in onto the tail of Matt Bell as well. Then we have the gap back to Gary Kane. He is second in the SR3 class, and then Chris Headlam third in the 55 car. We've got side by side here Colin Noble, and around the outside looks John Reynolds, the former very successful World Championship motorbike racer. Just trying to get around Colin Noble. He couldn't quite do it there at Riches. The same goes Terence Woodward on Andy Cummings as they arrived in Heaven at Montreal. Then looks up the inside into Palmer, no joy there. Here is the race leader, Zach Chapman. Behind him in the number 3 car is Tony Wells in second position. Then we've got James Abbott in third. Zach Chapman, a very successful tin top racer in Toyota Round 2 Championship, very inexperienced in radicals, but he really is showing them the way home thus far today at Snetterton, turning through Coram Curve once more, and we're beginning to move towards the pit stop window. These 40-minute races in the Dunlop Radical UK Cup, all the drivers must make a mandatory pit stop. Some of the entries are single driver efforts, some of them, such as the number 9 car there with Simon Tilling at the wheel, hand over to the second driver. In case of that car, it will be Jonathan Wright, although the car he is chasing down at the moment, number 12, Peter Bamford, will remain in the cockpit for the entire duration of the race. Surging through Coram Curve, here comes Matt Bell. We were saying a little bit earlier on, this is his first race in 3 years, would you believe? And he is to a flying start this season. Wherever you look throughout the field, there are battles going on. There is the number 1 car of Mark Smithson, one of the other drivers who went off in the early stages, as Terence Woodward now makes his move on Matt Bell, and that is for overall race position, although Bell maintains his class lead. So Woodward recovering up through the field as Mark Smithson pressurising Patrick Jeans. He just can't quite find a way through just yet. Maybe the pit stop window will give that number 1 car the opportunity to jump up through the order. Accelerating out of Palmer, just kicking up the dust there is Smithson, and into the hairpin at Agostini. It's not quite close enough to make the move on Jeans, but then look up the road ahead, and they are closing on the cars in front. We've got a bit of an entanglement there. It's Mick Dwayne in the 77 car and Mark Howard in 38. Both of those going to recover, no harm done, back into the action. Well, ahead of this train, it's Manhal Alos, the pole sitter. This is where he'd love to be at the head of the queue of cars. Unfortunately for him, he's 4 laps down, possibly going to go a 5th lap down here as Zach Chapman and Tony Wells close in on his tail. John Reynolds must be thoroughly sick of the exhaust pipes at the rear of Colin Noble's car, because he's been watching them all race long now, and he still can't quite find a way past Colin. But the pair of them are setting a good pace, as is Manhal Alos, who has been on the pace of the leaders since joining the race, several laps down. Unfortunately, this race is really going to be a case of learning what the car's doing in time for the second race of the weekend a little bit later on. So Alos accelerating into Palmer as Smithson again cannot find his way past Patrick Jeans. The driver's really proving the old adage, it's one thing to close up on the car in front, it's quite another to find your way through. Simon Tilling will probably concur, but now we get the move from Mark Smithson. He finally finds the gap up the inside into the hairpin at Montreal. When Jonathan Palmer designed the Snetterton 300 circuit, he always thought the hairpin at Montreal would be the prime overtaking opportunity. Well, the pit window is open. James Littlejohn and Sean Balfe ready and waiting to take their chance behind the wheel. Look at Mark Smithson, he's now closed up and gone through a glut of cars. He's ahead of Peter Bamford and up into 4th place in the race overall. Well, we were saying all the while he was dicing with Patrick Jeans, they were closing on the cars in front. That's exactly what's happened. It's also brought Terence Woodward into the mix, as well as Jeans. Looks to the inside, Woodward at Murray's. That's very close. Terence Woodward, though, holding his line around the outside as they all peel off into the pit lane. The pit window very much open. Phil Abbott, Alex Capardia looking for their men. So we get the first of those driver changes. Jonathan Wright with Simon Tilling. Also Mick Dwayne pops out of the car. Jamie Robinson about to jump in. Does. Here's John Reynolds. His opening stint in car racing done. Phil Abbott into the cockpit.
We just just outside Tony Wells and James Littlejohn's garage, and we're going to see how their changeover goes. So we'll see if this knocks anything off their time.
Leaders due in now. Here they come. Zach Chapman and Tony Wells comes forward, and Wells not onto the pit apron. He won't get too many thanks from some of the other competitors. James Littlejohn, the ex-Formula Ford, ex-Formula Renault racer, clambers into the cockpit. They shared an SR3 in last year's Radical UK Cup, so upgraded car for this year. Chris Headland peels and he'll hand over to Jamie Stanley as Stuart Mosley is now at the wheel of the number 1 car and goes back into the action. So Phil Abbott rejoins as well.
So Andy, it's the first race back for this season, 2012, and you've upgraded your car. How did you get on?
Not too bad. This year's going to be interesting for me because I'm doing the Clubman's Cup in the SR3 and then jumping straight into an SR8, so the difference between 2 cars is quite different. But yeah, I'm getting on okay with it. I'm getting on okay.
And how did you find your new car for today's race?
Yeah, very, very good. We were testing here this week. Times are very, very good. Brad, as usual, is always on the money, so we're hoping to have a good result today.
John, that was your first race out there with the Radical. How did it go?
Very nerve-wracking, actually. And it's certainly a start I've never had. It was a rolling start, really, and yeah, it was a big learning curve, isn't it? I mean, I really didn't want to put the car into a barrier on the first lap, and with cold tyres, we don't have tyre warmers on the cars, so that's another learning curve I've had to go through because I've spun the car twice now on cold tyres. So, yeah, steady away, but once we got into it, I was absolutely loving it. Fantastic job, yeah.
The pit stop's coming to a close as Sean Balfe rejoins the track, and he's going to come out just behind Peter Bamford in the Radical UK Cup. The pit stop lengths determined by the driver grading. Sean Balfe and James Abbott, slightly higher driver grading than Peter Bamford, so Bamford gaining the time in the pit stops. He rejoins in 3rd position with them Balfe immediately behind him 4th. This is going to give us a great battle over the next few laps. Already Balfe looking to try and gain the initiative, looking to the inside into the hairpin at Montreal. He couldn't quite do it. They then accelerate on towards Palmer. It's the black car of Bamford as Jonathan Wright gets it very wrong on the exit of Palmer, bumping across the grass. Should rejoin though. He's kept the engine running. Zach Chapman remains in the lead of the race. This has been performance thus far from Zach Chapman, but let's see what James Littlejohn can do, whether he can try and close that gap down. There's Littlejohn just at the very back of your shot, trying to close in on Chapman. Let's not forget that Littlejohn is relatively fresh, whereas Chapman has had to drive the entire race. Still Balfe pressurising Peter Bamford every which way through the bomb hole. Can't really overtake there. What about into Coram Curve again? Balfe looks to the inside, then the outside. Jockeying for position, they come through Coram and on towards Murray's. The exit from Murray's crucial to get a good run up the centre straight in towards Riches. And Balfe could be on for a good run here because he's in the slipstream behind Peter Bamford. They accelerate over the crown in the road here on the centre straight on towards Riches, but Bamford's got enough in his pocket. Casually looking in the mirror. Sean Balfe unable to challenge through Riches. Bamford a little bit tighter possible in the exit, and Balfe's going to launch it up the inside here into Montreal. The hairpin, is he going to go through? Bamford tries to squeeze it back, no! Through goes Balfe into 3rd position. Great move, and he set up several corners ago on the exit of Murray's, and so he gains 3rd position as Alex Capaldia goes wheel to wheel with Flabbert and gains the place. That's a great move from Alex, one of the quickest drives in the championship. Phil Abbott had no option but to concede there through Murray's. Wherever you look, there are battles, but it is still Matt Bell who leads the SR3 class. And as with Zach Chapman lead the race overall, the SR8 class, it's been a case as steady as she goes, as Hardier and Abbott continue to battle. And Abbott, the car well placed in the race from John Reynolds' stint, is now with some very quick drivers. The pair of them closing on the orange car, now in the hands of Nick Padmore. Peter Bamford, who has lost another position there. There's Stuart Mosley, who has gained the place, so Stuart Mosley's up into 4th. Bamford is down into 5th position, and you just wonder how well that number 1 car would have gone had Mark Smithson not had that first of instant at Montreal, with Stuart Mosley up into 4th place. We've got a bit of a moment there for Roger Green in the number 38 car, which is often exactly the same place that his co-driver Mark Howard spun it earlier in the race. Nothing if not consistent, that squad, as Bamford puts a lap on the number 7 car. Philip Jeans still trying to pressurise Stuart Mosley, but Mosley beginning to put a few metres between himself and Peter Bamford. Yes, that gap is extended just on that run really between Riches and the hairpin at Montreal. The question now will be, can Mosley do anything about Sean Balfe up the road ahead of him. Not sure whether that's going to be possible. Peter Bamford, though, will be very happy with the way the opening round of the season's gone. Right, this is the fight for second position, the SR3 class, and Nick Padmore coming under all sorts of pressure from Alex Kapadia, who looks around the outside into Riches. He's really pushing, kicking up the dust on the exit. The ex-Form the First racer charging behind the ex-Fiesta racer as they go side by side through Montreal. Kapadia runs wide. We're going to take a moment's pause. We're back here at Snetterton with more action very soon.